Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for evicting my dad and his wife? Long story, I'll try to be as concise as possible. My dad built an extremely extravagant house, detached 6 beds, 8 baths, for himself, his now wife, and her 2 children to live in. Halfway through, he ran out of money, so asked my grandmother to act as guarantor for him to borrow more money to finish the house. She reluctantly agreed. He finished the house just before moving in. The second loan company, which grandmother had guaranteed, needed to repay. He buried his head in the sand, ignored demands, and it ended up with the loan company threatening to repossess his newly built house and my 73-year-old grandmother's house. In desperation, he asked my 2 younger brothers, 25 at the time, and I to mortgage his house so he could finish it, but more importantly to save my grandmother from losing her house. They weren't financially in a position to help. One brother had a newborn baby, so in desperation I asked my fiancé, now husband, if he would take out a joint mortgage with me to help save my grandmother's house. He reluctantly agreed. I need to make it clear we only did this to save grandmother's house, and the mortgage along with the 50,000 payment from my grandmother was enough to pay off the debtors. The deal was my father and wife would pay the mortgage, and when they were in a position to, they would get a mortgage in their name. Trouble is, they've never been in a good position. He is too old to get a mortgage and she has a low-paid job. Fast forward 8 years and my husband and I still have the mortgage. However, it has recently come to light that in the last 8 years, my father and his wife have contacted the bank, impersonated my husband and I, and made numerous changes to the mortgage, including 8 payment holidays and 2 new mortgage deals, all in our name and affecting our credit rating. The last mortgage deal was agreed a month ago by my dad and would have tied us in for another 2 years, which neither my husband or I want. I managed to cancel the deal by telling the bank that we hadn't authorized it, and they have opened a fraud investigation. I phoned my dad to confront him and he hit the roof. He told me that had it been left to me, he would be paying 1,000 a month for his mortgage, not my problem or fault, and that if I tried to sell the house, he would rip all the fixtures out, kitchen, bathroom doors, etc., and you'll never be able to sell it. I haven't spoken to him since and I'm losing a lot of sleep over it. Our next plan of action is to hire a lawyer and give them notice to vacate the premises before selling. This may be tricky as we don't have a tenancy agreement. We have a young family and our own home which we need to protect. Am I the a-hole for evicting my dad? You're not the a-hole, OP. Your dad is an ungrateful, greedy, selfish fraudster. You never should have helped him in the first place. I understand you said you didn't help him and that you took out the mortgage so your grandma wouldn't lose her house. But if your dad was careless enough to let this happen to your grandma, then it just means the same would happen to you, and it kinda did. He impersonated you and your husband and destroyed your credit rating, and now he's mad that you want to kick him to the curb. Hire a very cutthroat lawyer. If you can sue him, do it. Your father doesn't deserve any mercy after all the shit he has done. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. You should definitely talk to a lawyer and maybe think about filing something for identity theft, given that his actions affected your credit rating. He wanted a mansion and now managed to hurt your grandmother and you, because he's not financially responsible. At this point, you should try to keep contact with your father and his wife through writing or another recorded means alone. If he trashes the place intentionally, he could be responsible for the waste. You are clearly not the a-hole. Your father committed fraud. He should not only be out of that house, but in a very different and much less cozy house. But I would advise you to keep track of your financial products better. The mortgage is in your name, and you should have kept track of it in the 8 years that have passed since you opened it. I don't quite get why you have not checked the position of your mortgage in the past 8 years, fully knowing that your father couldn't be trusted, and he was supposed to make the payments. I would begin by putting a credit freeze, which requires a PIN to access credit reports. Anytime someone applies for anything that requires a credit check, the credit bureau would require a PIN to proceed. If a PIN cannot be produced, then any application will cease. Additionally, it would not hurt to pay for a credit monitoring service. You should also file a police report to build a paper trail against your father. It's to deter any future actions like the one described, to show credit companies that you are taking normal credit security precautions and are not in cahoots. And if there's any similar cases of fraud, then the police have an idea where to start their investigation. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for not giving up my room for my roommate's dad? So my roommate's parents' house burned down and they needed an emergency place to stay. I was happy to let them stay as long as they needed because, holy shit, what a horrifying situation. My roommate is from a traditional family where elders are venerated as more important. I disagree with this philosophy, but it's his life and his family, so it's never been an issue before. Where it's an issue now is that when his parents got here, my roommate gave his mother his single bed. He then turned to me and told me to show his dad where he will be sleeping in my room. I said, "What?" "No," which was apparently the wrong answer because his dad deserves a bed instead of a couch as an important guest during an emergency. I was yelled at by him and his parents, but I refused to budge. Reason being, it's my room. I can't sleep on the couch either. I have sleep issues, which makes even sleeping in the controlled environment I'd set up in my room difficult. I have valuables in there that I don't trust a complete stranger being around. Now he's trying to set his dad up with a hotel and told me that I would be paying for it. I refused this as well. And this probably makes me an a-hole. Told him to get effed and locked myself in my room. He's still texting me, but I'm ignoring his messages. I feel like this is an unfair situation where nobody wins, but my roommate attempted to make this decision for me without my input, without offering any kind of compensation for being put out of my room for an indefinite period of time. I understand that elders are important in his family, but his family is not my family, so I feel I shouldn't have to follow their traditions. You're so not the a-hole, OP. I mean, it's fine if your roommate wants to give up his space to accommodate his parents, but it's still your home and your room. You're already helping them out by letting them stay within the house. Some people wouldn't even agree to that. Your roommate seems to be pushing how far your generosity can go by putting you in a tough situation. He also tried to make this decision for you instead of talking to you about it first. And then when that didn't work, he insisted on you paying for a hotel room for his dad. He's being ridiculous, and you telling him to get effed was completely justified. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. You pay rent. You have the right to say the parents can't share your space. But you were nice enough to allow them into your shared home. Tell your roommate to buy a bigger bed if they have to be in a room so badly. But you did your part already. They can go fudge themselves about you paying for a hotel room, trying to blame you and force you to do more than you're willing to do for a disaster that had nothing to do with you in the first place is wrong. Not the a-hole. It's already nice enough that you're letting them stay. An extra 2 people in what I am assuming is a 2-bedroom is going to make things very inconvenient for you. Not only should you not have to pay for the dad's hotel, it's pretty crummy of both the parents and your roommate not to at least offer you a bit of money as compensation for staying. Also, I'm worried you haven't discussed how long this arrangement will go for. Rebuilding a house takes a long time. And as harsh as it is to say, none of this is your problem. Not the a-hole. As an Asian, I understand how elders are respected, but your roommate has no right to give away your room without permission. I suggest you move out. His parents will always consider you rude, and your roommate will hold a grudge against you. This is not going to go away. These people don't have the same principles as you. Also, your roommate is either stupid or malicious to be asking you to pay for his dad's rent. This shows your roommate cannot be reasoned. Please get out before things get worse. His family is not doing well financially, and you will be expected to cover for them eventually. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for shutting down my son and his friends movie? The title sounds odd, but allow me to explain. I, 41 female, have 3 boys. The oldest is 19, the second is 14, and the last is 6. I live with my husband, who is the father of the youngest, and my mom lives with us too. I recently kicked my oldest out due to drama that's irrelevant, so he no longer lives here and is now living with his father, my ex. I used the empty space and converted it into a playroom for my youngest since he loves it. My second oldest, named Nick, wants to be a filmmaker for a living and has been taking film class online on some softwares he told me about. Nick brings his friend over, who my ex and I are really close with. My ex and his father work at the same office, detectives, and me and him would go to dinner with them once in a while. Nick and his friend share the same dream and they make their own movies with Nick's Godzilla toys. Nick puts effort in his film with editing, film angles, etc., and they get quite a lot of attention on YouTube. They have a little setup in the basement. Nick was the one that transferred the empty space into his own little workstation. This morning, the friend came over and went to the basement with Nick to film. They were going to do a recreation of Godzilla's Revenge. He has all the equipment, sets, and toys for it. The youngest wants to be involved with what they're doing, and I told them to take him with them. Nick declined, saying that friend has to go with his grandma's soon in 2 hours, and he will be miles away, and that they want to finish the difficult scenes before he goes. I told him that it wasn't a question and that he either take him with them or I'm shutting them down. Nick backtalks to me saying that friend didn't come over to babysit, that he's got expensive equipment in the room and that he doesn't want the youngest to ruin the sets. I ignored what he said and told him that I'm shutting him down since those weren't valid excuses to exclude his brother. Nick told friend to leave and that they will do this another time. I then told Nick that now friend is gone, he can teach the youngest how he works. Nick refused, saying that not after what I pulled. I told him that it's his responsibility to care for his brother, and he said he does. Bullshit. But for filming, he wants peace and not having the fear of something getting screwed up. I had enough. I took phone away and his MacBook so he couldn't edit for a week because of the disrespect towards me and his brother. When I alerted my ex of the punishment, he was against me. He told me that the boys aren't free childcare and that I need to give him his stuff back. I left him unread because I was shocked at his response. Free childcare is besides the point. And I doubt a 6-year-old can ruin a movie. My mom, husband, and a few friends think I'm in the wrong. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Okay guys, I get it. I'm an ass. I'll give my son his equipment back. Please stop replying. I think 10 is more than enough for me to understand. Edit 2. I gave my kid his elections back and apologized, but he refused to accept it. I was tempted to take it away again, but let it go. Thank you to those who called me a horrible mother, although I provided my child all the equipment he needed. I think you guys were being a little bit petty when someone gave me the award and downvote everything I say when I answer a basic question. You guys can actually stop calling me an a-hole now. Last edit. Stop accusing me of favoritism. I love all my boys equally. The reason I kicked my 19-year-old out is because he kept disobeying my rules. Now for some comments. You said free childcare is besides the point, so you basically just acknowledged that it was for childcare but excused it to move on to something else because you know that your ex has a point. The fact to immediately change the subject and move on really pisses me off for your child. You're the a-hole. P.S. You don't get to decide the amount of people commenting. What did I just read? You're the a-hole. You can't let your son do his thing for 2 hours? No, it's not your kid's duty to take care of their siblings. Just no. It is your duty to take care of your children. And filmmaking equipment is expensive. You should be happy he has a passion and is putting effort into it instead of throwing a hissy fit because you can't be bothered watching your own kid for 2 hours. There are plenty of opportunities for the 6-year-old to see how it's done and participate. How is we only have 2 hours today and we really want to focus on it, not a valid argument. You're the a-hole. Because you know that this is something your son and his friend are passionate about, and instead of letting them accomplish this, you threw your youngest at him, simply because he wants to be involved. I totally understand him wanting to be involved, but there is a massive age gap between them, and pawning off a 6-year-old on two 14-year-olds while they are working isn't really fair. He was right. He probably would have ended up babysitting because he doesn't want to damage his friend's expensive equipment. I don't think it was fair to shut down the movie at all. Not only did you shut it down, but you also punished him further by taking his things away. He didn't deserve any of that. It's not his responsibility to watch after his brother, simply because the brother wants to be involved. It's your responsibility as a parent to explain to the younger one that his brother is busy working, and it's your responsibility to look after him.